The air in Lagos was thick with the scent of petrol, sweat, and ambition. Tunde, a lanky teenager with eyes that burned brighter than the midday sun, navigated the chaotic streets of Oshodi. At 16, he was already a survivor, hawking recharge cards under the relentless heat, dodging area boys who demanded a taxes for his small patch of pavement. His mother, a widow who sold roasted corn by the roadside, could barely keep food on the table. Tunde's father had died in a hit-and-run years ago, leaving behind nothing but debts and a grieving family. The streets were Tunde's school, and survival was his curriculum. Tunde wasn't like the other boys who accepted their fate with bowed heads. He dreamed of more, of a life where he didn't have to count pennies for a plate of gari. He watched the sleek cars roll by, their tinted windows hiding men in crisp barders or sharp suits, and he wondered what it took to sit in their world. The answer came one humid evening when a flashy SUV pulled up beside his recharge card stand. The driver, a young man no older than 25, wore a gold chain that gleamed like a promise. His name was Razor, a notorious Yahoo boy in the area, known for his charm and his cash. "Smorley, UWAN make real money?" Razor asked, leaning out the window, his voice smooth as honey. Tunde's heart raced. He'd heard stories about Yahoo boys, scammers who worked the internet, spinning tales to foreigners for dollars. It was risky, but the rewards? Mansions, cars, designer clothes. Tunde nodded, his throat tight with anticipation. "Come with me," Razor said, flashing a grin. "But you gotta be sharp. No dulling." That night, Tunde stepped into a world he'd only glimpsed from afar. Razor's apartment was a shrine to wealth, leather couches, a flat-screen TV, and a fridge stocked with Heineken. Razor introduced him to the game, crafting fake profiles, sending emails to a Mugui overseas, and spinning stories that bled bank accounts dry. Tunde was a quick learner, his fingers flying over the keyboard, his mind weaving lies as effortlessly as a tailor stitching cloth. Within weeks, he'd made his first $500. It was more money than his mother earned in a year. But the streets of Lagos don't give without taking. Tunde's success caught eyes, some envious, others dangerous. The Yahoo game wasn't just about brains, it was about protection. And protection meant connections. Razor wasn't just a Yahoo boy, he was a member of the Black Scorpions, a cult that ruled the underbelly of Lagos. They were more than a gang, they were a brotherhood, bound by blood oaths and secret rituals. Razor saw potential in Tunde, not just as a scammer but as a soldier. "You need family to survive this game," Razor told him one night, passing him a bottle of Hennessy. "Join us, and nobody go touch you." Tunde hesitated. He'd heard about the Scorpions, their brutal initiations, their clashes with rival cults like the Red Vipers. But he also knew the streets didn't favor the lone wolf. He agreed, and the initiation was a blur of pain and promises. They beat him until he could barely stand, then made him swear loyalty on a crude altar, his blood mixing with the earth. When it was over, Tunde was no longer just a street boy. He was a scorpion, marked by a tattoo of a coiled beast on his shoulder. The Scorpions gave Tunde power. No one harassed him for taxes anymore. His recharge card days were over, replaced by laptops and late-night deals. He moved out of his mother's one-room shack, renting a small flat in Sorulere. He bought her a new stove and sent his younger sister to a better school. But the money came with strings. The Scorpions demanded loyalty, and loyalty meant blood. Tunde's first test came during a turf war with the Red Vipers. The Vipers had ambushed a Scorpion drug runner, stealing a shipment worth millions. Razor handed Tunde a Glock, its weight heavy in his hands. "Prove yourself," Razor said. That night, Tunde joined a raid on a Viper hideout in Ajagonal. The air was thick with gunpowder and screams. Tunde fired his first shot, the recoil jarring his bones. He didn't know if he hit anyone, but when the dust settled, the Scorpions had won. Tunde's hands trembled, but Razor slapped his back. "You're one of us now." By 20, Tunde was no longer the scrawny kid from Oshodi. He was Tunde Abladi Akinsola, a name whispered with fear and respect. His Yahoo scams had leveled up, fake investment schemes, romance cons, even cryptocurrency fraud. He had a team of boys working under him, funneling dollars into his accounts. The Scorpions promoted him to Carpa regime, a lieutenant overseeing operations in their territory. He drove a Benz, wore Rolexes, and threw parties that lasted till dawn. Girls flocked to him, and his mother prayed for him, unaware of the blood on his hands. But power breeds enemies. Tunde's closest friend, Emeka, had joined the Scorpions with him. They'd been inseparable since their days dodging area boys, sharing dreams of escaping poverty. Emeka was the brains, Tunde the charisma. Together, they were unstoppable, or so Tunde thought. Emeka had a secret. He'd been skimming money from their Yahoo deals, siphoning small amounts into a private account. Tunde noticed discrepancies but brushed them off. Emeka was his brother, his ride or die. Betrayal was unthinkable. The police were another problem. Lagos was a city of crooked cops, and the Scorpions paid hefty bribes to keep them at bay. But one officer, Inspector Okoye, was different. He was young, ambitious, and uncorrupted, at least, that's what he claimed. Okoye had been watching Tunde, tracking his deals, his movements. One night, Tunde was pulled over in his Benz. Okoye leaned into the window, his eyes cold. "I know who you are, Blade. I can bring you down." Tunde laughed it off, offering a bribe. Okoye refused. "This isn't about money," he said. "It's about justice." Tunde drove away. But Okoye's words lingered. For the first time, he felt the walls closing in. The cracks began to show during a deal with a South African syndicate. The Scorpions were moving cryptocurrency through a dark web marketplace, a high-stakes operation worth $2 million. Tunde and Emeka were in charge, coordinating with hackers in Ukraine and runners in Johannesburg. The deal was supposed to cement Tunde's legacy, maybe even earn him a seat at the Scorpions' high table. But the deal went south. The crypto wallet was hacked, the funds vanished, and the South Africans were baying for blood. Razor was furious, blaming Tunde for the failure. Tunde swore he'd been meticulous, but the evidence pointed to an inside job. Suspicion fell on Emeka, who'd been unusually quiet. Tunde confronted him in their usual spot, a smoky bar in Yaba. "Emeka, talk to me. You know something?" Tunde's voice was low, but his eyes burned. Emeka avoided his gaze. "I don't know nothing, Tunde. You're paranoid." But Tunde wasn't a fool. He hired a hacker to trace the stolen funds. The trail led to an offshore account in Emeka's name. The betrayal hit like a bullet. Emeka, his brother, had sold him out for a cut of the profits. Tunde didn't confront him again. He went to Razor. The Scorpions didn't tolerate traitors. Razor ordered Emeka's execution, and Tunde was expected to pull the trigger. It was a test of loyalty, one Tunde couldn't refuse. They lured Emeka to a warehouse under the pretense of a new deal. Tunde's hands shook as he raised the gun. Emeka's eyes widened, realization dawning. "Tunde, please," Emeka begged. "We're family. You stopped being family when you stole from me, Tunde said, his voice breaking. He pulled the trigger. Emeka crumpled, blood pooling on the concrete. Tunde walked away, his heart a stone in his chest. Emeka's death broke something in Tunde. He started drinking heavily, his scams grew sloppy, and his temper flared. The Scorpions noticed. Razor, once his mentor, began to see him as a liability. Meanwhile, Inspector Okoye was closing in. He'd gathered evidence, wiretaps, bank records, even a witness from the Ajagonal raid. Okoye offered Tunde a deal: turn informant, expose the Scorpions, and walk away with a lighter sentence. Tunde laughed in his face. You think I'd snitch? I'd rather die. But the pressure was mounting. The Red Vipers, sensing weakness, launched a new wave of attacks. A Scorpion safehouse was burned to the ground, and 2 of Tunde's boys were killed. Razor blamed Tunde, accusing him of losing focus. The Brotherhood he'd bled for was turning on him. The final blow came from within. One of Tunde's own boys, a young recruit named Chidi, had been feeding information to Okoye. Chidi was ambitious, hungry for Tunde's spot. When Tunde discovered the betrayal, he didn't hesitate. He cornered Chidi in an alley, but before he could act, Okoye's men swarmed in. It was a setup. Tunde was arrested, his empire crumbling in a single night. In a cell at Kirikiri, Tunde faced the ruins of his life. The Scorpions disowned him, branding him a traitor to save face. Razor spread word that Tunde had snitched, ensuring he'd never be safe, even in prison. Okoye visited him, offering the deal again. Help me take down Razor, he said. You can still save yourself. Tunde stared at the wall, Emeka's face haunting him. He'd killed his best friend, lost his freedom, and for what? A life built on lies and blood. He thought of his mother, still praying for him, unaware of the monster he'd become. He thought of his sister, whose school fees he could no longer pay. No deal, Tunde said finally. I'll face my fate. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming: murder, fraud, racketeering. Tunde was sentenced to 25 years. As he was led away, he caught a glimpse of Razor in the courtroom, smirking. The Brotherhood had betrayed him, just as he betrayed Emeka. Tunde's story spread through Lagos. A cautionary tale whispered in bars and barbershops. Some called him a legend, a boy who rose from nothing to command the streets. Others called him a fool, undone by his own ambition. His mother visited him every month, her eyes heavy with grief but never judgment. His sister wrote him letters, promising to become a lawyer to fight for his release. In his cell, Tunde found a Bible, left by a previous inmate. He read it slowly, the words cutting deeper than any blade. He began to write, pouring his story onto paper, every scam, every betrayal, every drop of blood. He didn't know if anyone would read it, but it was his truth, raw and unfiltered. The streets of Lagos kept turning, new boys rising, new empires falling. But Tunde's name lingered, a reminder that in a world of crime and betrayal, loyalty is a currency no one can afford to lose.